If you've ever loved someone who didn't love you back, you'll understand what I'm about to say. I was standing in front of the mirror, in my wedding dress, heart pounding, hands cold as ice. The room buzzed with congratulations. Everyone thought I was the luckiest girl alive marrying a powerful, wealthy man. But as I stood there, all I felt was emptiness. I turned to him, my groom, and in that quiet moment before we said I do, he whispered another woman's name. Her name wasn't mine, and that was the moment I died inside. What followed was a slow, painful decline. The marriage was a cage. He never touched me with love. His eyes were always looking past me, toward her. I cooked his meals, cared for his family, smiled through everything. I was the perfect wife, on the outside while crumbling on the inside. And when I was diagnosed with a rare illness, he didn't even come to the hospital. She did. His lover, she told me. He was on vacation with her. A week later I died. Alone. Forgotten. But then, I woke up. Same room. Same bed. Same posters on the wall. My teenage self stared back at me from the mirror. I was 17 again. I had been reborn. 1 year before my wedding. 1 year before I walked into that loveless cage. 1 year before I gave up my entire life for a man who never even tried to love me. This time, I won't make the same mistake. My name is Aria Lin, and this is the story of how I changed my fate. This time, I will not marry the man who broke me. This time, I will choose the man who truly loved me. Even if he was the one I ignored last time. I touched my cheeks, still warm from sleep. Was this real? The calendar on the wall said exactly what I feared and hoped. I was back. In time. The same day I had agreed to meet my parents' friends' son, the beginning of the arranged engagement to Darren, the man I married in my previous life. The man who destroyed me without ever lifting a hand. But before I even got out of bed, I whispered to myself, this time, I won't say yes. I got up, took a deep breath, and smiled. Finally, I had a second chance. Aria, remember today is important, Mom said, setting a bowl of soup in front of me. You're meeting Darren. Don't mess it up, all right? My father nodded with a stiff smile. He's from the Yu family. Do you understand how many girls would kill for this? I looked at them both. The same faces I'd loved for so long. The same parents who never truly listened. And yet, I loved them still, even if they saw me more as a bargaining chip than a daughter. I smiled gently. I've been thinking about it. I don't want to go. Silence. My mother dropped her spoon. My father's eyes widened. What did you just say? He asked slowly. I said I don't want to go, I replied, voice calm. I want to choose my own future. You ungrateful, my father began. But I stood. I'm not being ungrateful. I'm just finally being honest. I didn't wait for their shouts. I left the table and walked outside into the warm spring air. That first act of rebellion felt like breathing after years underwater. I went to the park near my old school. It was quiet, peaceful, just like I remembered. And that's when I saw him, sitting on the same bench as before, reading the same book. Evan G. The boy I once brushed off because I thought he was too simple, too ordinary. The one who had once asked me out with trembling hands and sincere eyes. I had rejected him gently back then. But in my first life, when I was sick and alone, I had found out that Evan had never married. He had sent flowers to my hospital anonymously every week, and I only realized it after it was too late. But now, I had a chance. I stood in front of him, heart pounding, watching him turn the page. Evan looked up and smiled. Aria, his voice. Just as soft, just as kind. "Hi, Evan," I said, smiling. This time, I wouldn't overlook him. This time, I'd let love find me. Evan looked up at me like I was a distant memory, returning to life. His brown eyes were the same clear, honest and patient. That patience had once felt too quiet for me. I had thought I needed someone louder, someone bolder. But it was the quiet ones who stayed. It was the quiet ones who waited. He closed his book slowly. "Didn't expect to see you here." I smiled, trying to hide how emotional I felt just seeing him again. I needed fresh air. And maybe a familiar face. "You've been avoiding familiar faces for a while now," he said with a light chuckle. "You okay?" I sat beside him, the distance between us barely a breath. I stared ahead at the tree swaying gently in the breeze. "I haven't been okay, but I think I will be." Evan didn't ask for details. He never pushed, never forced. He just waited. That day we talked for an hour. Then too. I laughed. He listened. And when I left, I felt something shift inside me. In my past life, I'd only noticed Evan when it was far too late. When my life was crumbling, and he was a distant regret. But now I saw him. And I wasn't about to let him slip away again. Back home, my mother was waiting with arms crossed and a storm brewing in her eyes. "Where were you?" she snapped. "Mr. Yu's family is offended. They sent Darren and you didn't show up." I set down my bag gently. "I didn't agree to that meeting. You are our daughter. We decide what's best for you. You think love is enough to feed you, to protect you? I think a loveless marriage is worse than poverty," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "And I won't walk into a life that kills me slowly." Her slap never came, but her silence was louder than any scream. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes, not for me, but for her status, her place in society. What would the other families say? That the Lin family's daughter refused the U heir. She didn't understand. She never would, but I wasn't doing this for her anymore. That night, I lay in bed thinking about how much I had changed. How much the girl in the wedding dress would never believe the one lying here now. And in my dreams, Evan stood beside me, his fingers barely brushing mine. A future I had once rejected. A future I now craved. The next few days passed quietly, but not without resistance. My father tried to force my hand. "Business deals were on the line," he said. "Our reputation would suffer." I simply told him I wasn't a transaction. And just like that, Darren Yu showed up. He was exactly as I remembered. Cold, arrogant, beautiful, in a way that made people surrender without realizing they had. He arrived at our home like he owned it. "I'm here to take Aria out," he said casually to my parents. I stepped into the living room before anyone could respond. "I'm not going anywhere with you." His brows rose slightly. "Excuse me." I said, "No, I'm not interested in meeting you, dating you, or marrying you. Not now. Not ever." The temperature in the room dropped. My mother gasped. My father's fists clenched. But Darren simply smiled. "Interesting. I don't recall giving you a choice." I looked him dead in the eye. "Then you're about to learn how wrong you are." He stepped closer. "You think I came here to woo you? I came because our families made a deal. I came because I don't like to lose. Then maybe it's time you learned how." And I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't owe him anything. That night, I texted Evan, "Want to get dinner tomorrow?" His reply came almost instantly. I thought you'd never ask. Dinner with Evan was nothing like the events I used to attend with Darren in my past life. There were no photographers waiting outside, no designer heels cutting into my skin, no fake smiles stretched across my lips. Just a small corner CAF with fairy lights above, the aroma of fresh pastries and Evan smiling at me like I was the only person in the world. We sat across from each other, and for the first time in 2 lives, I let myself relax. I always thought you hated sweet things, Evan said, watching me spoon cake into my mouth with surprising enthusiasm. I used to pretend I did, I confessed with a soft laugh. I thought it made me seem more mature. You don't have to pretend around me, he said simply, and that, right there, was the difference. I had spent my entire last life trying to be someone else, someone perfect, someone polished, someone worthy of Darren Yu's cold approval. But with Evan, I could just be me. No makeup, no performance, no calculated silences. He told me about his job. He was working as a freelance architect and designing community spaces. Nothing flashy, but full of heart. He had always been like that. Practical, humble, quietly brilliant. Why me, Evan? I asked, halfway through dessert. Back then, when I barely looked your way, why did you keep being kind? He shrugged. Because I saw something in you. Even when you didn't see it in yourself. I looked away, fighting the burn in my chest. I didn't deserve that kind of loyalty. Not then. Maybe not even now. But this time, I would try to earn it. When he walked me home, we stopped beneath the street lamp near my gate. He hesitated. So did I. I almost told him everything about my past life, about how much I regretted not choosing him before. But I held back. Not yet. He deserved to know, but I had to make sure it wasn't just guilt pushing me forward. I wanted to love him, not just repay him. Thanks for tonight, I said softly. Anytime, he smiled. Really? As he turned to go, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. But not everyone was happy. The next day, Darren cornered me outside the campus library. He wore his usual suit, perfect posture, flawless confidence, like he belonged to a world I had escaped from. Aria, he said, voice cool. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you, I replied, brushing past him. You've changed, he muttered behind me. I paused. Yes, I have. He stepped in front of me again. You think dating some nobody makes you strong? I narrowed my eyes. You think your last name makes you better? I know what's best for you, he said, as if it were fact. No, you only know what's best for you. And I'm done being part of your strategy. Darren's smile didn't reach his eyes. I could destroy him, you know. I know, I replied coldly. But he's stronger than you think. And I'm not the weak girl you used to manipulate. That was when I saw it, the first crack in his expression. Doubt. But Darren, you was not the type to give up. Later that night, I received a call. An unknown number. Miss Lin, the voice said, low and gravelly. You should be careful who you associate with. Accidents happen. The call ended before I could respond. I stood frozen, heart thudding. It wasn't just Darren's jealousy. I had to fear now. It was his influence, his reach, and suddenly, I realized this life would not be easy either. He was going to fight to pull me back. But I had lived through worse, and I would not be afraid. The next morning, I woke up with a pit in my stomach. That voice from the night before still echoed in my head. A threat veiled and precise. I had no proof, no recording. Just a deep, visceral knowledge of who was behind it. Darren knew. In my past life, I never saw that side of him. He had been cruel, yes, emotionally absent, but not violent. But maybe I was simply too blind to see the rot beneath the luxury, and now that I'd humiliated him by rejecting the engagement, by walking away from his perfect plan, he wouldn't stay quiet. At his school, whispers had already begun. She's dating Evan G now. Didn't she have a rich fiancé before? I heard her family's in trouble. Gossip travels faster than truth, and high society doesn't forget a betrayal, especially from a girl like me. Evan noticed too. That day at lunch, he walked with me in the courtyard, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the faces around us. "You okay?" he asked, stopping beside a tree. I hesitated. "Not really." He looked at me with calm focus. "Waiting. I got a call last night," I said finally. "A threat?" Evan didn't flinch. "From him?" I nodded. "What did he say?" "Just a warning that I should stay away from you, that accidents happen." For a moment, Evan didn't respond. Then, very quietly, he said, "I won't back off, Aria." "Not because of him." That made me pause. "You're not scared." "I am. But I'm more scared of what you'll become if you let him control your life again." The honesty in his voice undid me. I almost cried right there. Instead, I touched his hand lightly. "Thank you." He nodded, then smiled a little. "Though I might start carrying pepper spray." That night, I dug through the drawers in my room, the ones I hadn't touched in years. I was looking for something I hadn't thought of since my first life. A letter. I remembered receiving it weeks before my wedding. Back then, I dismissed it as nonsense. But now I knew better. And there it was, yellowed with time, sealed with a red stamp. I opened it slowly. "Aria, you don't know me, but I know what they're planning. The Yu family isn't just using you, they're hiding something. Darren's engagement to you is a cover. His heart belongs to someone else, and your inheritance is their bargaining chip." My hands trembled. It was unsigned. No name, just a final line. "If you want the truth, look into the orphanage fund your father donated to last year." A puzzle, a secret buried in plain sight. I stared at the letter, realization dawning. In my past life, I had never questioned the Yu family's motives. I had assumed the worst pain I endured was emotional neglect. But what if it had been more? What if my marriage had been a transaction layered with deceit and exploitation? I had to find out. As the next day, I visited the office where my father's company kept donation records. It took some coaxing, some fake smiling, but I managed to get a copy. The donation to the orphanage wasn't real. It was a transfer to a shell company, one tied to the Yu family. The money had vanished within a week. It hit me like ice in the veins. They hadn't just forced me into a marriage. They had used me to launder money, my name, my innocence, and I had thanked them for it. Not this time. I met Evan that evening in a quiet cafe near the university. I told him everything. About the letter, about the fraud, about Darren. He listened without interrupting, and then he asked, "Why are you telling me all this?" "Because I trust you," I said, "and because if something happens to me, I want someone to know the truth." He reached across the table and gently took my hand. "Nothing's going to happen to you, Aria. Not while I'm here." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. But we both knew the storm was only beginning. It happened 2 days later, so fast I barely had time to brace for it. I was walking into class when I noticed everyone staring at their phones, whispering, smirking, Then, like a wave crashing over me, I heard it my name, Aria Lin. Someone shoved their phone in my face. It was a video of me and Evan sitting in the CAF, holding hands, but the footage had been edited with captions twisted to make it look scandalous. Daughter of Ling Group flirts shamelessly while her arranged fiancé waits. Gold digger dumps powerful fiancé football college boy. Lies. All of it. And just like that, the internet exploded. The video had been uploaded to gossip forums, shared on social media, and even picked up by a local news site. My classmates looked at me like I was filth. I turned and left, heart pounding, ears ringing. Outside, my phone buzzed non-stop. Calls from my mother, from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, from unknown numbers. Threats, shame, demands. By the time I got home, my father was waiting, red-faced, furious. You've embarrassed us in front of the entire business world, he shouted the moment I stepped inside. You think love matters more than legacy? You stupid, selfish girl. I didn't do anything wrong, I said quietly. I'm just choosing my life. He slapped the table. There is no life for you if we fall. Do you understand? Your actions have cost us investors. Darren has pulled out of 2 deals already. Good, I thought bitterly. Let everything fall if that's what it takes. But I didn't say it. I simply walked away. In my room, I sat on the bed and stared at the window. The same view I had once dreamed through before marrying Darren. Before everything, my phone lit up. A message from Evan. I'm outside. I rushed to the gate. And there he was, his face worried but steady. I opened it and threw my arms around him. He held me for a long time, then whispered, "They won't break you." I thought I was ready for this, I said. But it hurts. It really hurts. I know, he replied. But you're not alone. And then, as if fate hadn't thrown enough at me already, my mother came storming outside. Her face was pale, her hands shaking, not with anger, but fear. "Aria," she whispered, "they're investigating your father." I froze. What? The Financial Crimes Unit. They showed up today. Someone leaked the documents. The fake donation. The U-Shell company. The letter. The records I had found. I hadn't leaked anything, but someone else had, and it was public now. Everything. My heart thundered. My family's empire, already fragile, was about to collapse, and Darren, he wouldn't take this lying down. Later that night, my phone rang again. This time, it was Darren himself. I picked up. "You think you've won, don't you?" he said, his voice calm to calm. "I don't care about winning," I said. "I just want to be free." "You've destroyed your family," he said. "And for what?" "A man with no future. A nobody." I didn't answer. "You'll come crawling back," he continued, "when your parents disown you, when your boyfriend can't protect you. You'll regret this." I hung up and blocked his number. No more fear, no more guilt. Let the world burn if it had to. I had already died once, and this time I would rise. The next morning, the world had changed. Headlines now spoke a different name. My father's Lin Corporation under investigation for fraudulent donations. Financial ties uncovered between you and Lin families. Insider claims engagement was strategic move to cover tracks. It was all out. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone buzzing, hands cold. My father hadn't come home. My mother hadn't left her room. The family name was collapsing. Everything they had sacrificed me for gone in an instant. I should felt vindicated. I should felt relieved. But instead, I felt tired and angry because I had tried. I had begged them not to force me down that path again. I had offered them truth, love, a second chance, and they chose pride, chose Darren, chose a lie. Evan came by before noon. He didn't say a word when he saw me, just sat beside me and held my hand. They're going to arrest him, I whispered. My father? I know. He's not a good man, Evan. But he's still my father. I know. I leaned into him, the pressure in my chest finally bursting. And Darren, he'll still find a way to come after me. Evan nodded slowly. Then let's stay ahead of him. We spent the next few days in quiet war mode. Evan, resourceful as ever, contacted an old friend of his from university who now worked in a legal firm. They began compiling every document I had, every scrap of proof I had uncovered about Darren's manipulation, the shell companies, the deals tied to my name. I don't want revenge, I told them. I just want the truth out. I want to be free. Truth is the best revenge, Evan said gently. The media was hungry. And when someone anonymously uploaded the U Corporation's internal documents to a whistleblower portal, the fire caught fast. Within 48 hours, Darren's name was on the news. His photo, his record, his engagement arrangement with a minor-me-surface.it was all unraveling. I watched it all from the safety of Evan's small apartment, where I had taken refuge after my mother broke down and asked me to leave, blaming me for everything. She loved you once, Evan said quietly, handing me a warm drink as I sat curled on his couch. She loved the idea of me, I replied. The good daughter, the obedient girl, she'll regret it. I shook my head. I don't need her regret. I just need peace. We sat in silence, the storm outside mirroring the one we'd survived. Days passed. The press eventually shifted its focus. The Lin name no longer held interest. Darren had become the bigger scandal. He had gone into hiding, his company stock plummeting. People who once bowed to him now denied ever knowing him and me. I started over. Evan helped me find a job at a design firm, using my creative instincts, something I had buried long ago. I was terrified at first, unsure, but he never let me falter. You can create something beautiful out of the ashes, he told me once. He was right, and one evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in soft orange, Evan turned to me. We made it through, he said. Together, we did, and now. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small, velvet box. My breath caught. No grand speeches, no flashes or photographers. Just him, just me. He opened it. Inside was a simple silver ring. I know we've both lived through fire, he said, and I know you've seen more pain than anyone should. But if you'll let me, I want to be the one who builds peace with you. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I don't need a mansion. I don't need wealth, I whispered. I just want love. Real, quiet love. Then marry me, he said. I nodded, and this time, I said yes. Not because of pressure, not because of duty, but because I finally loved and was loved in return. The weeks that followed our engagement felt like healing wrapped in sunlight. We planned a small wedding. No sponsors, no media, no designer gowns or hollow applause. Just us, a garden, and the few people who had stayed when everything else fell apart. But peace doesn't come without shadows. One rainy afternoon, just 5 days before the wedding, Evan received a call. I heard the tension in his voice before I even asked. He's here, Evan said after ending the call. Darren, I didn't ask how he knew. I didn't need to. He had returned, not to rebuild his name, not to apologize, But for me, I knew it in my bones. Later that evening, I found Darren waiting for me outside the university gate, under a black umbrella, dressed like the man I once thought I'd marry, perfectly tailored, polished and hollow inside. "Aria," he said. "Don't," I replied. "I just want to talk." I stared at him. "Talk? After everything you've done?" "I didn't leak the video," he said, as if that erased the rest. "I didn't tell your father to threaten you." "No," I said. "But you let them. You used me. You used my name, my silence, my loyalty. You could have had everything," he snapped suddenly. "Everything. A life people dream of. But you threw it all away for what? A nobody." I smiled faintly. "A nobody who treats me like I matter. Who doesn't see me as a pawn." Darren stepped closer. "I came back for you. I didn't ask you to," I said, voice calm. "And you're 5 years, 1 death, and a whole lifetime too late." His eyes narrowed. "You think this love will last? You think he can protect you forever?" "I don't need to be protected anymore," I said. "I protect myself now." He stood there for a moment, rain sliding down the brim of his umbrella, his silence full of all the power he no longer held over me. "I loved you," he said quietly. "No," I said, just as softly. "You loved the idea of owning me." I turned and walked away. For the first time in 2 lives, I didn't look back. That night, I returned home to Evan. He stood barefoot in our tiny kitchen, humming to himself as he made tea. And when I walked in, he looked at me like I was the most important thing in the world. "You okay?" he asked. "I am now." He held me like I was home, and I knew I had finally closed the door on my past. The sun rose gently on our wedding day, casting soft light across the dewy grass and pastel flowers arranged around the small garden venue. There were no news crews, no status chasing guests, just the scent of jasmine, the warmth of friends, and the steady sound of my heartbeat, for once not from fear, but from joy. I stood in front of the mirror in a simple white dress, nothing like the one from my first wedding. This one didn't cling to tradition or power. It didn't weigh me down. It made me feel like me. Evan hadn't seen the dress yet, but I knew when he did, he'd smile, that soft smile of his, and say I looked like sunlight. My best friend, Lila, fixed the flower in my hair and whispered, "He's going to cry. You know that, right?" I laughed quietly. "Maybe. He cried when we rescued that stray kitten last month." "Exactly. You're his whole world." That truth hit me with a tenderness that almost made me cry too. Downstairs, I could hear the gentle tune of our violinist. The guests were seated. The sky was clear. I walked out slowly, each step down the garden path heavy with memory. Not pain this time, but strength. This walk wasn't a surrender. It was a declaration. And when I reached the end, I saw him, Evan, in a light grey suit, eyes shining, smile soft. "And yes," he cried. We held hands as the officiant spoke, but I barely heard the words, because my thoughts were full of all the things we'd overcome. 2 lives, a broken family, a scandal, betrayal and love, real, patient love. "I do," I said, when it was my turn. "I do," he echoed, voice thick with emotion. The kiss was soft, sweet, and felt like a closing chapter and a brand new one. But peace is never entirely undisturbed. As we turned to greet the guests, a figure in the back caught my eye. My mother. She had come. She looked older than I remembered, more fragile, more real. She wore no makeup, no pride, just quiet regret. Our eyes met. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. But she mouthed, "I'm sorry," and that was enough. After the ceremony, she approached me quietly. "I'm not here to fix things," she said. "I just needed to see you happy." With my own eyes, I didn't hug her, but I touched her hand. "Thank you for coming." Then she turned and left, like a ghost laid to rest. Later that evening, Evan and I danced beneath the string lights. Our friends clapped and laughed, the music sweet and calm. "You know," he murmured, "I don't care where we go from here, as long as we go together." "Then we're already home," I said. He smiled. "Mrs. G." I smiled back. "Mr. G." And in that moment, nothing from my past mattered anymore. Not Darren. Not the scandals. Not the heartbreak. I had been reborn, and this time, I had chosen right. Married life with Evan wasn't flashy or dramatic. It was soft, real, built on routines and shared laughter, burnt toast and late-night walks, quiet support and stolen kisses in the kitchen. It was everything my first marriage had never been, and yet sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, as if the old life was still chasing me. In those moments, Evan would pull me closer, his voice a steady whisper. "You're safe. You're home." And I was. I returned to my passion for design. With Evan's encouragement, I started a small firm, working with local businesses to bring warmth and function into their spaces. It was hard work, long hours, difficult clients, but for the first time, the exhaustion felt like purpose, not punishment. One afternoon, after presenting a proposal for a community art center, the client, a tall, middle-aged woman with kind eyes, smiled and said, "You remind me of someone. Aria Lin, from the old Lin group. You wouldn't happen to be related, would you?" I smiled. "That was me." Her brows lifted, surprised. "I thought you disappeared after the You scandal." "I did," I replied softly. "And then I came back as myself," she chuckled. "Well, I'm glad you did. We need more women like you, resilient, unshaken." It wasn't the first time someone had recognized me, but for once, I didn't feel ashamed. I didn't flinch. I stood tall. The past had become a foundation, not a chain. Evan and I adopted a stray dog we named Mocha, who loved to steal socks and had an odd obsession with rain puddles. Our apartment was full of warmth and chaotic joy. We didn't have much money, but we had a life we built with our own hands. One rainy evening, Evan came home soaked, holding a soaked brown envelope in one hand and grinning. "Guess what this is?" he said, placing it on the table. I dried it off and opened it. Inside was an official offer from the city's redevelopment council. They wanted to collaborate with my firm on a revitalization project. Full funding, full creative control. I blinked in disbelief. "I didn't apply for this," I said. Evan grinned. "No, I did. On your behalf." I stared at him. "You believe in me that much?" He kissed my forehead. "More than you'll ever know." The next few months flew by. Meetings, designs, media interest. Suddenly, the name Aria Lin was back in the public, but not as the disgraced daughter or abandoned fiancé, as a woman who rebuilt her name from ashes. And one afternoon, after a long presentation at City Hall, I stepped outside foyer only to see a face I hadn't seen in a long time. Darren. He looked thinner, older, no longer untouchable, just human. We locked eyes. He gave a short nod. Not arrogant, not desperate, just acknowledgement. I nodded back and walked past him without a word. That was closure. Evan was waiting for me at home, dinner half burnt, Mocha barking, the living room a mess of blankets and books. And I had never been happier. sitting by the window, watching the city lights twinkle beneath a velvet sky. I often think about the 2 lives I've lived. How I was once a girl trapped by expectations, drowning in silence and sacrifice. How I lost myself to a loveless marriage, to pain that broke me apart, and then how I was given a second chance. To wake up before my life fell apart, to rewrite my story not with fear or regret, but with courage and love. Reborn. I never imagined love could be this gentle, this real. With Evan, I learned that love isn't about grand gestures or perfection. It's about kindness in the smallest moments, about trust built day by day, about choosing each other even when the world is against you. I'm not the same Aria who stood in a wedding dress years ago, heart shattered. I'm stronger, wiser, whole, and my past, it doesn't define me. It shaped me. To anyone watching this story, I want to say, you are never too broken for love, never too lost to find your way back. Life can be cruel, but it can also be kind. We get one chance to write our story, and sometimes, just sometimes, we get a second. So if you're standing where I once stood, afraid, trapped, alone, remember, you have the power to choose. Choose yourself, choose love, choose to be reborn, because your true story is waiting. Thank you for listening to my journey. This is Aria Lin. This is my second chance at love. Thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment Evan, so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, spread love.